So the next step with these stretchers is they have to cross each other. So I have to remove a notch out of here and a notch out of there so these two can fit together. So I've already marked these, but I'll show you the process. Essentially, I found a center line, and then since this is 3/4 inch thick material, it'll be half of the is 3/8 of an inch, which is the distance from the center line. So I just made a mark on it with a square and a marking knife that was 3/8 inch away from the center line, made the mark, and then by simply taking the other piece and setting it exactly on that, and you can use your knife as a guide, and just taking a quick scribe on the other side, I now have a notch that's the exact width of this board. And using the square, I can transfer that around. And then I took a marking gauge and just set it to the exact halfway point. It's pretty easy to check. Put a little tiny mark in, flip the board over the other side, and make sure you end up in the exact same spot. Just keep tweaking your gauge until that's exactly what you want. So now I have essentially scribed around the center line. I have, using my square and a marking knife, I've marked down to it on both sides, so I now have a line all the way around this entire piece. The next step is going to be to actually cut it out. Now we could do this on a table saw, you could do it on a router table, there's a whole bunch of different ways. I'm going to do it by hand. So we're going to cut it with a hand saw, and we'll go through the steps to make that happen. So we have all these nice scribe lines that we put in with the marking knife. We want to come from the top and establish a good reference point for us to start using our hand saw on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1-inch chisel, I'm going to push down and make a little bit more defined line there. Well, I want to come in from the side, and I want to just remove the material on the top ever so slightly. So I create a nice little notch. You can see a nice little notch that I have in there, and that'll give me a good point to register the saw against. So that way when I take my saw and I have my thumb up on the piece, even if I'm a little bit, I want to cut right on that line, but even if I'm a little bit to the right side of it, on the first time when I pull this saw back, it's going to push it right up against that edge we've made with the chisel. So now we've got that initial cut started. What I like to do is I like to stand so I'm standing and looking directly over the saw. So pretty much out of each eye, I can see that line going down the board. And that will help me ensure that I'm cutting straight as long as I watch that. This notch at the beginning will help ensure that I get a nice 90 degree. And it's just simply cutting. You're cutting on a slight angle, so you'll reach the bottom, the bottom of your notch first on this side, and then you can watch it from the other side as you cut through. It's one of those things where practice really does make perfect. And we're going to flip it around and do the exact same cut on the other side. Coming in with our chisel, establishing on that mark, making it deeper. Making a slight notch, and then doing our cut. So now we need to remove this material. So I have a sacrificial board set up because I'm going to be chiseling and I don't want to chisel into my bench. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to establish the bottom of this notch a little better. We used the marking knife before. If I come with the chisel, Make sure it sits nicely in that line by the that I put in at the marking gauge, and just push down on it. You don't need to hit it or anything, just push down on it, establish a little better. Now we want to come in and we want to remove some of this material out here. So I'm just going to make some chops to work our way back. We'll just chop it from both sides. Switch to a narrower chisel. So right back to that line. We're going to make chops. We're only going to chop to the halfway point of this board. Now we set it in the vise and just clean up any material that's there. The other piece is slightly tight, but that's the way that we want it. So we're going to go through and do the same process on the second board. Now we should be able to put them both together completely.